Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to another adventure in history. My name is Shane McInnes, and I will be your surgeon, your proctor, and your helicopter. I don't know if anybody knows that reference. It's My Chemical Romance stuff. Anyway, I'll be the guy talking with you all tonight. And welcome. Yup. Already nice. So, we have had quite a few neat little changes since the last time that we streamed. The first being that I have successfully managed to wrangle an emote that actually works through Twitch. And I had to employ other people's web tools and start over from scratch, but it's all good. So, if you are a subscriber, you now get to own a copy of your own adventure hat. And it's going to be awesome. It already is awesome. Look at it in all of its glorious adventure glory, right? Oh yeah, I've been grousing about this for a few days now. It's been a back and forth thing with Twitch to try to get all of this stuff working. But it does work now. I am pleased with the outcome. And if you would like to subscribe, you can get access to that. Few things around the housekeeping world, as always. If you would like to, you can follow me on social media at Some History Guy. I have also created neat little commands that I can use, like this. Hey, look at that. Moving ever so slightly more towards the pro streamer world. So you can send me an email at mckinnistravels@gmail with anything that you would like to know about history. If you have any questions, if you run across something online that you don't know much about but want to know more about and don't want to do the legwork yourself, let me point you in the right direction. I'd be happy to help out. Also, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, where I'll post completely non-inflammatory stuff as far as I know. Mostly stuff about where I've been and things that I think are interesting from the articles that I read around the net as I peruse history and archaeological related news. So there are all of those things. Also, if you are so inclined and are a member of Amazon Prime, you can, if you have not already, linked your Amazon Prime account here to Twitch, and that will give you an opportunity to gain access to a free subscription that you can give to the streamer of your choice. And subscriptions are very much like pledges of support. That does equal actual real money that I get to use, and I will be 100% transparent in telling you exactly how I use that money that I get from my channel. The first thing on my list that I'm going to purchase with Twitch funds is a new webcam that has a slightly, let's just say a way better resolution than the one that I am currently using, so that I don't always look so blotchy. I mean, I'm a pretty pale guy, and I tend to have blotchy skin when I stay out in the sun too much, but I promise I am not this generally beige. Better than the integrated camera in your laptop? Absolutely. Such decadence. I know. It's going to run me about $35. But that money is definitely appreciated, and you, of course, do not have to subscribe if you do not want to. I just have hope that you enjoy the channel and everything about it. I am here, of course, only to give cool content for history in a way that is both non-threatening and approachable, in a way that I think is a little bit more fun than your typical history class. In fact, I don't even like the concept of calling this a class. I much prefer to consider it a conversation, one that you all hopefully can participate in and talk in and all of that fun stuff. Such decadence, I know. We can see all your freckles. Yes, I do actually have quite a few freckles. The Irish in me comes out strong in that way. I'm oppressing the working class, bourgeoisie swine. I would like to think that by offering my services to the people for free, that would not qualify me as bourgeoisie. And if the people decided to honor me, and it is truly an honor, with subscription funds or bits or things of that nature, that I would be giving back to the community. and you can see my eye boogers. Man, if I don't start sleeping better, you might see the eye boogers. I have been on a rip lately of just not sleeping well. So much stuff. I still pass the hat. I don't pass the hat. I hold the hat and occasionally wear the hat. And that actually does bring us to some of the other new things that I have added. Oh, and right off of the bat, KP has redeemed Summon the Adventure Hat. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, in the bottom corner of your chat message, you should see another little image of the Adventure Hat. And beside it, you have a certain number of adventure points. And you get those purely for sitting in the chat and listening to me gab. They just happen automatically. And a lot of channels don't really play around with those very much, but I wanted to do something with them interesting. Same here, Shane. I can't break my habit of afternoon naps. Superb, I have really tried to stay away from the afternoon naps. It really does kill my ability to go to sleep at what people would call a normal time. So, what can you do with those little channel points? Well, you can do a few things. You can highlight your message. You can do a few other things, but I have added several what I call custom things that you can do with your adventure points. For example, if you click the little adventure points button, it will tell you that for 200 adventure points, you can summon a random history fact, whereby I will just blurt out a random history fact, or you can type me a little request and say, tell me something about so-and-so, and I'll do my best to fulfill that. For 350 adventure points, you can let slip the puppy of war, whereby I will call our mutt to show up on stream. I figured I would try my best to not pander by bringing the dog on stream unless people really wanted it, so I figured I would give you the opportunity to call the dog up. And you can do for 750 what Kilted Preacher just did and summon the Adventure Hat. And by summoning the Adventure... Okay, so there's the Adventure Hat wearing sunglasses. That's awesome. So by summoning the Adventure Hat, what you get is a story where I will wear the Adventure Hat and get on with it. Let me think of one that I might be able to share related to an adventure that I had with KP. I don't know if I have one right off of the bat, but I'll come back to that in a moment. So let me just tell you a fun little story, quick from one of my random trips. In 2015, I had some friends, some students, and another colleague and we went to Jordan. Flying through Paris, we actually had a very large layover, and we were able to leave the Paris airport and see some sights in Paris, especially the Louvre. But what was really interesting, and gives you a little bit of an idea about how French people handle tourism, they saw that our connecting flight led us through to Jordan. And I had a gentleman that has been in the channel before with me, one of my friends named Gabe, who was a student in this trip. And his passport photo had shown him as a very young, clean-shaven guy. And he had since grown a rather large, bushy beard. And he got stopped at French customs because they asked him where he was going, and he said, I'm going to Jordan. And he had grown a very large bushy beard. And this was at the height of ISIS, when the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, also known as AiH, was causing a lot of trouble. So the people at the French airport thought that Gabe might be going to join ISIS because he had radicalized and grown out his big beard, a la very strict Muslim law. So we had to bring lots of images to bear, and we had itineraries, and we had scheduled our trip with the U.S. Embassy, so it took a little while to work out, but that was a hairy moment there for just a second. All right, so there is your Adventure Hat moment. If I get one of those again, I can, of course, bring the Adventure Hat back out. I'm not losing this stream again. All right, welcome, Lagger. Hope everybody's doing well. So you can now do stuff with those points. You get them simply for being in the room. If you participate in a raid, you get a certain amount. If you subscribe, your points go up double speed. Hello, and again, I appreciate the formality, but you by no means have to call me Mr. You are welcome to just call me Shane. I'm a guy. I'm not what I would consider lecturing right now. We're just having a friendly conversation and talking with each other, right? And as always, you're welcome to ask questions. Finally, along the way, they have moved it, and it's now down in this region of the screen. There is a little heart that you can click on. That little heart will allow you to know when I am online. And right beside that, you'll see a little bell, and that little bell will give you notifications and let you know when I am going live. So you can actually follow and get push notifications or email notifications or several other things that you can use to sort of hang out, let you know when I'm around, and let you know what's going on. So that brings us to the actual topic for the night. For me, you are my teacher. That is objective. You're a scientist and I'm a hobbyist. We're all friends. We're all cool. Hey, you Fid. Welcome to the show. Hope everybody is doing all right. So, okay. We are going to talk about India tonight. The topic of the show, as always, is a goofy pop cultural reference. I hope you all have ascertained where it comes from. It's actually pretty hard to come up with India puns. I was going to go with Harappa the Rappa, but that's a really, really deep cut that I didn't know how many people would get, so I decided to go with Come On, Get Down with the Indus, which I hope everybody gets. And if you don't worry about it. We'll be talking about the Indus River and the valleys surrounding the Indus River. So that's the topic for tonight. It is a deep cut. Yeah. All right. So let us begin. And one of the things that I want to say about India, just to sort of preface some of this stuff, is India is one of these regions of history that most public schools and even significant portions of colleges sort of skip over. You don't really get a lot of Indian history in world history. And I think that's shameful because India is super cool. There are fascinating people here in this world. The oldest surviving religious texts that are still in use come from India. The oldest practiced religion on earth still comes from India. That, of course, is the Sanskrit Veda stuff, and then the modern-day practices that get lumped together under the umbrella of Hinduism. I didn't get it, but it sounded funny. It comes from a song from the band Disturbed that's called Get Down with the Sickness. And it's a very weak pun. I had a hard time trying to come up with anything for this one. So it is what it is. But India is a really big place. It is, of course, one of the most densely populated places on Earth, even today. It is the home to around 1 billion people, which is absolutely enormous. India is a really cool place with lots of really distinct individual cultures, and I wanted to talk about this as we sort of move around the world. And we're going to be kind of following a little bit of progression here as people would have migrated. We talked quite a bit about the Mesopotamia region and the Egyptian region, so I want to move away from what we might consider sort of the comfortable stuff and get into an area where we might be a little bit less aware, but that doesn't mean it should be scary, right? The other was a play on words from the criminally underrated video game Parappa the Rappa. Yeah, that was a good one. Interesting stuff. All right, so as you might know, this big old chunk of land right here is what we call the subcontinent of India, but for the early part of tonight, we're mostly going to be looking at this region up here. This, of course, is geographically speaking where the modern-day country of Iran is, but this is what's known as the Iranian Plateau. These mountains right here in what are modern-day Afghanistan are frequently referred to as the Hindu Kush. Has nothing to do with marijuana. And this big guy right here, this big, nice, green, fertile river is the Indus River. And as humans are migrating out of the region, to give a brief synopsis in like one or two sentences, somewhere around 70,000 or so years ago, people managed to move through India, and they're going to start settling right around in here, and then of course down and around the coastlines of India. There is another very large river system over here, which is the Ganges River, which is also going to be important for several different religious sites as well as civilizations. So Afghanistan, Iran, Tajikistan, same nation speaking same language. Ooh, I would think they would have very, very different opinions about that, Lager. I would say that the Afghanis and the Tajiks and the Farsi do not consider themselves the same nation. And I would think that their take on Islam is one of the largest reasons of that. That's a little bit later than what we're talking about, though. So we're going to start talking about a group of people that are called the Harappans. This is the first identifiable organized civilization inside of India. And when I say civilization here, what I mean is we have big cities, we have writing structures, we have sort of organized labor, kingdom level kind of stuff. The Harappans are going to be named after, unfortunately, the location where they first got discovered, which is a big city that modern day archaeologists called Harappa. We don't actually know how to read their language. There aren't very many pieces of it existing, so we don't really know what these people called themselves. And there's actually a bit of a movement in modern Indian studies to get away from calling these people the Harappans and starting to call them the Indus Valley Civilization. I don't really have a problem with that designation. Most of the time, though, if you're doing studies or reading anything, you'll see these people referenced as the Harappans, but you might also see them listed as Indus Valley Civilization. Was the writing system used Sanskrit? No, but we will get to Sanskrit. That gets moved in a little bit later on in time, but we'll get to that by the end of the discussion. Good question there. So the Harappans are going to be settled in a fairly large region that covers the Indus River Valley here and along the coastline, spreading out in both directions. The largest of their cities is in modern-day Pakistan. Is it in any way related to cuneiform? Man. See, there's a lot of discussion about where exactly the Harappan language came from. Some people want to trace it back to some of the more Mesopotamian discussions, especially there's a culture right around in here that is chronologically around the same time as the Assyrians and Babylonians called the Elamites. It's E-L-A-M. And some people say that the original Harappan language is sort of an extraction of the Elamite language, but I don't think that has been very firmly proven. There's a lot of debate about where this actually comes from, but it doesn't look like the cuneiform writing. We've found cuneiform tablets in part of the Harappan world, but that's mostly because these cultures traded with each other. So they knew of each other, and they had certain small elements of culture, like writing on tablets and using seals to identify individuals and things like that. But it's not really something that we could definitely say, like the cuneiform writing from Mesopotamia is the basis of the writing in the Indus River civilization. So this ancient Indus Valley civilization is called Harappans, and we have inscriptions for them but haven't been deciphered. Right. The Elamites of Iranian stock or something else, linguistic isolate. So the modern Iranians are going to be different than the ancient people that lived there. The Elamites are mostly down in this region, and they are they're a lot more closely linguistically and ethnically tied to the people in this southern region here. The modern day people that are sort of kind of in charge of the Iranian world come from this region up here, which is actually Fars, where we get Farsi, and also the word Persia, which of course is a later civilization that arises. But we are, at this time, we're talking around the 3300 BC timeline. So we are way before there are Persians. Yes, there is a cultural exchange between some of the Mesopotamian cultures here around the Persian Gulf. And you can't see that because I'm not pointing it at the right way. So this region right here and the Indus River Valley civilization are linked by trade, and it does look like there was some cultural exchange between the two. The largest of the Harappan cities is a place called Mohenjo-Daro. Let me type that out for you all. Mohenjo-Daro. And this is in modern day Pakistan. Let me show you the modern day borders just so we can get an idea of where we're looking at. So the majority of the Indus River runs through modern day Pakistan. And Mohenjo-Daro, hey, check this out. We can just do this and go look at it in space. Mohenjo-Daro is the largest of these cities. Unfortunately, it's in some pretty bad shape. It was a very, very large city. You can see here that it's quite widely dispersed. Oops, sorry, I popped that down. I've got a couple of pictures here that I can show you from a little bit more of a ground level. So Mohenjo-Daro was a very big city. It had tens of thousands of residents. You can see here lots of really nice shaped buildings. There is a large sort of domed structure up here. There are big bath houses that are sort of up on this platform. One neat thing to notice about the Harappan culture is that they had a lot of standardization between their big cities. You can see some of these cities that are spread apart by several hundred miles, but they all fairly much use the same sort of measurements. And these bricks, this by the way is what's called the Great Bath at Mohenjo-Daro. This would have been filled up with water. These people are agriculturally based people. The basis of their sort of religion is around grain. The puppy has brought in a squeaky toy and is behind me attacking a stuffed chicken. So if you hear odd squeaking, that is not my voice. And I know that I said that it was in bad shape, but let me show you what I'm talking about. This is sort of the Acropolis, or the top part of the ancient city. Let me switch back over here to Google Earth, and I can show you what's happening, unfortunately, down here at the bottom. So the whole site of the city is actually quite enormous. So all of this region would have been part of the large ancient city, and this would have extended well out into here for residential areas. But if you note, the Indus River right here runs very, very close to the bottom edge of the city. And the Pakistani government has not done the best of jobs preserving a lot of this. So when the river overflows, you can actually see a lot of places here along the shoreline that have been washed away, because again, this is all mud brick. So hold on just a second, let me get this squeaky toy. Kaylee, bring me the chicken. Bring it here. Okay, thank you. This is what was being squeaked, by the way. And I, of course, have now made a mortal enemy by taking the squeaky toy away from the dog. But such is life. The city itself has not always been very well preserved. Going back a little bit to the images here, one more picture. These here are actually at the site of Harappa. What is the chronology of those buildings? 1800 BC. So the city of Mohenjo-Daro was first settled probably somewhere around 3300 BC, and it hit its what we would call cultural height between about 2600 BC and 1900 BC is when you would have seen a lot of that stuff happen. So this is actually from the site of Harappa itself, and all of these buildings that you see here are actually built to be really big grain storages. So one of the big things that these people are going to do is be wrapped around fertility and grain and agriculture and stuff like that. So yeah, these people have really ancient history. They had a really great looking pottery. You can see here, this is a Harappan vase that has the image of a bull on it. Of course, the bull is going to be very important, especially in later Indian cultures, and we'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end of the discussion. But you get these really great, really nice decorated geometric patterns, things that are very high, what we would call not just regular everyday use, but luxury items. This is not something that a lot of people would have had, if you were just kind of throwing stuff around. So these Harappans are a pretty neat group of people. When were the Minoan palaces built, just to make a comparison? It depends on which version of them you're talking about. The Minoans are around the late part. Well, no, I should say that the other way around. Somewhere around the 29 to 27, 2600 BC range. So Harappa is going to predate the Mycenaeans, and as is Mohenjo-Daro, probably by 500-600 years maybe. Reminds me of Mycenaean art. Yeah, and the Mycenaeans don't hit that level of what we would call quality until probably somewhere around the 1400s. So the Harappans are pretty great and pretty far advanced for the time. And this is, again, stuff that people, I don't know, that you just don't kind of get this history very much. And it kind of irks me because these guys are super cool. One of the neat things about the Harappan culture that is a big question mark is how exactly they governed themselves, because they have these big cities and they don't really have what we would consider palaces. And as we have discussed in past sort of episodes, this idea of building a big palace is sort of a natural evolution of a culture, right? When you get a certain number of people together, somebody has to be in charge. But you're not really going to see big citadels or big palaces, and you're also not going to see a whole lot of really big, overblown tombs, right? That would denote some sort of big, rich person, right? You're going to see tombs, and you're going to see evidence of religion, but they're not going to be a lot of differences between the people that you would consider kind of commoners and anybody else. I mean, of course, there are variances in the grave goods that are there, but you're not going to see something that would really strongly stand out and go, this guy was a king, right? And this has led some people to think that the Harappans were kind of an egalitarian culture, that everybody was kind of on the same level. I don't know how much I buy that. If you have organized religion and you have a population of somewhere in the 25 to 30,000 range, there's going to be some form of government. Perhaps they took it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. I love ancient pottery as well, Fid. One of my favorite things to do is do comparative pottery stuff. When the Aryo-Europeans, that's a term that we're going to have fun with, were wild nomads, barbarians, and warlike. India, Sumerian, Egypt had huge urban cities. Absolutely, yeah. The European continent, especially the northern and central and far western part of the European continent, are way, way, way culturally behind, chronologically speaking, at this time period. But Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa and these big cities of the Harappans have lots of really neat stuff. Like, these guys were some of the first people on Earth to discover and implement running water inside of a city. They had sewer systems. Mohenjo-Daro had running water inside the city, which of course is amazing, right? We get very spoiled today because we could just go to the tap and turn on the water. That's a very, very new thing, right? You could find people in the 1900s, the early 1900s in America, that didn't have running water in their house, that still used outhouses. But meanwhile, these people in the Harappan world around 2600 BC had running water in their city. This is super cool stuff. They're going to have... has LiDAR been used to locate ancient sites? You could imagine a lot of sites in India being swallowed by the jungle. Yeah, so the thing about the Harappan culture especially is that it's easier than you might think, because if we look here at the map, let me zoom back out here to space. The thing about a river valley culture is that the river valley itself is only so wide, right? So if we're looking at the Indus from space, and we're talking about a group of people that are going to live, within the sort of alluvial plain or the fertile area around this river, there's not really too many more places to look at, because you have the really big rugged mountains and the Iranian plateau over here, and then you have this other big desert region, which is along the border between Pakistan and India. So the Indus River has changed courses over time, which has made some of the sites harder to locate, but it's also destroyed some of the sites, which is really unfortunate. Because remember, these people would have lived as close to the water as possible. They didn't have a lot of the same things that we do. Even though they had running water, it was still helpful for the average person to be able to just walk down to the river and get some water during the day. So has LiDAR been used? I don't know for certain if they've brought LiDAR over to this area. I would not doubt it. LiDAR is becoming very, very useful for archaeologists. Unfortunately, the problems that have been going on inside of Pakistan and this region of India are delaying a lot of archaeological work, just because it's not safe. India and Pakistan in today's world do not care for each other at all, and this is a division that goes back probably thousands of years, and it's a pretty violent discussion. And I talked about this a little bit more. I'll talk about this more later on when we get to a little bit more modern day stuff. But like I mentioned about the Harappans, I'm behind in the chat. Let me check up. It's good for locating structures under plant life. Yes, it is, because it has a lot to do with the heat that bounces back. So if your vegetation is thin because it's on top of stuff like stone, it gives you a different signature than if it's on top of dirt, which holds heat a little bit differently. So you can sort of see topographically 3D images. They've used it a lot, especially in Central America, Guatemala, Belize, Mexico, to locate Aztec, Maya, Olmec, Toltec kind of stuff. They've built LiDAR into iPads. Whoa, that's cool. I might have to check that out. Yeah, the technology is definitely becoming more broadly used. I think I know what you guys are talking about. LiDAR was used to excavate a huge Amphipolis tomb. Oh, yeah. I was in Greece last summer, and there's this big tumulus that's sort of... There's a city called Amphipolis that's very, very important to the ancient world. It's between, for those of you familiar with biblical events, between Philippi and Thessalonica. But just north of that, there are these really cool Macedonian tombs. Warm Blue Groove is now following. Dun, 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 dun. Thank you for the follow, Warm Blue Groove. Welcome to the channel. If you have any questions, please make sure that you ask them. This is a conversation. Everybody is welcome to do what you need to do. But anyway, I was sidetracked about the Amphipolis tomb. I really wanted to go to that, but the people that I knew on the ground in Greece the connections didn't go through, and it's not really open to the public yet, so I didn't get in. But that's okay. It just gives me a reason to go back, right? Okay, so anyway, who are these people trading with? Well, the Harappans are trading with lots of people, and their trade network extends well into what we would call Central Asia up here. It extends over into the further reaches of India, into the Ganges River Basin, back through the Iranian plateau and over here into Mesopotamia. So these people have a very, very large and very advanced system of trade. And this is kind of a larger movement in the world at this period of time, around the height of the Bronze Age. And I would love to talk about the Bronze Age sort of as a thematic event, maybe in a later discussion. But for the moment, we have to, unfortunately, bring the Harappans to a close. Because the Harappans are going to start dropping off in population somewhere around 1900 BC. And this is going to be a fairly rapid decline. There are a lot of theories as to what happened to these people. The sort of leading theory is that there was about a 200-year period of drought that really hurt populations, because if you can't grow food, of course your population has to go down. People have to spread out a little bit more because these big cities can't sustain their momentum. The other idea is that some of the larger fields that they were using were affected by a change in the path of the Indus, so a lot of their good farmland got put underwater. Which of course is going to have a negative impact on your food production. And there's also a theory that there was a sort of large pandemic-sized plague that went through and hit these big cities, especially, so that people left the big cities and sort of diasporated out into the surrounding areas. But we're not really sure 100% what happened to the Harappans, but by the time we get to about 1300 BC, the big Harappan cities had been almost completely evacuated. You're not going to find more than maybe a couple handfuls of people living in leftover huts that they don't necessarily even know how to fix anymore. And this is going to bring us into a sort of a very debated phase of Indian history. And before I start talking about the Dravidians in earnest, I should note a couple of things. First off, there is, in today's world, inside of India, a group of people that are very influential. They're tied into the academic system inside of India, and they're also very closely tied in with the government of India. And these particular people are Hindu nationalists. They believe in a very strong India based on Hindu culture, and this is going to shade a lot of their interpretations of history. And I'm not going to delve into the individual political machinations of that stuff. I don't think that I'm the person that can really parse all of these arguments in the right way. I, of course, have my opinions. I just don't want to be the person that other people go to for value in this area. But know that there are a group of people inside of India that are pushing very, very hard to sort of reshape the interpretation of archaeological evidence inside of India. Political reasons that have to do with the name dispute we had with our northern Slavic neighbors, and heavily political pressures applied to the far-left government we had by the U.S. and Germany, given the name Macedonia didn't allow you and any other historian archaeologist to do the exact money. It wasn't in Macedonia, but I think you know that. I'm familiar with the whole Northern Macedonia or Macedonia thing, and them having to change their name to get into other treaty organizations, and I'm pretty well versed in that particular argument there. I think, though, that the problem with that particular Amphipolis tomb is that the Greek government had run into some trouble with money, being able to build the infrastructure that was needed to protect the tomb itself and allow in visitors, because you don't want to just let anybody wander through something like that, because of course it's very fragile. It's thousands of years old, and it takes a lot of prep work before you can get something to be open to the public. I do really need that opinion beret. I've actually been talking to some friends about where to find hats. It's hard to find hats in quarantine world. Amphipolis is in Macedonia. Macedonia was and is Greek. Fyrom is not located in Macedonia. Macedonia is only in Greece. Fyrom is located in Paeonia. Oh. I understand where you're coming from. I don't know if the ancient Greeks would completely agree with that. A lot of the ancient sources that the ancient Greeks talk about Macedonians are pretty negative and draw pretty distinct lines between the Macedonian barbarian culture and the higher Greek, Athenian, Theban, Corinthian, even Spartan culture. Ethnically, very, very similar. Culturally, there were some differences in the back end. But let's talk about the Dravidians. So, who are these people? Well, the Dravidians are an interesting group of people, and we really don't know too much about them. Most notably because the Dravidian language seems to be more broadly dispersed than individual ethnic groups. And I don't know if I said that in a what I would consider a polite way. There are a lot of different ethnic groups in the ancient world that spoke a central Dravidian language, and it's very hard for modern ethnologists, people that study ethnicity, to kind of draw a line around who was ethnically Dravidian and who wasn't ethnically Dravidian. And there's some gray area there, and there are a lot of problems with how we identify Dravidian people in ancient history. And the Dravidians that are alive now might even be ethnically different than the Dravidians that were sort of present 6,000 years ago in history. So there's a lot of difference in how you interpret Dravidian, and that's why I gave you the preface of there are a lot of debates about how to bring these people together, if you get what I'm saying. So the Dravidians were spread pretty widely throughout all of the population here. And Dravidian again is probably more comfortably used to describe a group of people that use a similar language, not necessarily an ethnic group. Herodotus acknowledges them as Greeks and participated in Olympic Games, or the Harappians, Dravidians, native Indians. So the Harappans are going to be a big question mark in how they relate to the Dravidians. Some people say that once the Harappan civilization collapsed, the sudden diaspora of people from these large cities spread throughout India and sort of became the spur that kicked the native Indian population into civilization. That's somewhat of a politically charged opinion. I won't go too far into that. But there were native people living in India around this time anyway. But there's definitely a rise in general levels of civilization after the Indus River Valley of the Harappans sort of falls apart. So you're going to see these people as uniquely identifiable linguistically and culturally, some around 2200 BC. So the sort of decline of the Harappans and the later sort of rise of the ubiquitous Dravidians are going to overlap just a little bit. But these people are going to be all over India. They're going to be in the north, they're going to be in the south, they're going to be in the east, and they're going to be in the west. They're going to be along the coastline. They're going to be inside the intra parts. There's a big plateau right here in central India called the Decca that they're going to tackle. The Dravidian culture is going to be very, very hardy. These people are agriculturalists. They're going to farm where farming is able, but they're also going to adopt pastoralism. They're going to start raising herds, right? So some of the central part here of India is not actually as hospitable as you might think. There are a lot of big elevation changes here. There are lots of mountain ranges. The rainfall in a lot of this place is not necessarily as much as you might think. And not all of central and southern India is the best for farming. Of course, the coastal plains are a lot easier to farm than the central area, but you're going to start seeing Dravidian cities pop up all over the place. And these Dravidian cities are going to have similar levels of culture. They're going to trade, but they're not going to ever get the same height as the Harappans, right? So the Harappans are trading over a couple of different continents, right? But the Dravidians are never really going to get as far out. They're mostly going to be regional trade, especially amongst individual cities where some of the Dravidian culture are doing sedentary farming and others are doing pastoral farming, right? So if I raise a bunch of herds, I might have meat deficiency in my diet. And if you only raise a whole bunch of sheep, I might have a carbohydrate deficiency in my diet. But if we trade, we can make everybody happier, right? So you're going to also see governments form here. You're going to get some smaller, what you might call petty kingdoms. And I don't mean petty here as an insult. It's just a small sort of regional thing. So the split in farming where they branched Dravidians. Oh, man. Oh, man, that's horrible. That's Oh, man. I don't think the son of the star lived among them, no. Branch Dravidians. Dude, how long were you sitting on that one? That's so good. No, they were not Branch Dravidians. Way to go, man. That's pretty great stuff. Oh, man. You were sitting on it most of the stream personally. Well, I didn't even think of it, so the hat is off, but the hat will be off again to you all. That's a good one. For those of you that might not be familiar, what Mac in a Lab Coat is referring to is a group of strangely different Mormon people in Waco, Texas, that was led by David Koresh. I have been summoned again with the adventure hat. Oh, man. Okay, so since Lager did this and has mentioned Macedonians, let me tell you the story of what happened when I was at AiH. There's a big, really, really big tomb to Alexander the Great's father, and it cost an enormous amount of money to go into, and they don't like you taking pictures inside of it. Oh, I must tip the hat? Okay. So I'm inside this big tumulus, and I really want to take pictures of this stuff, right? And I'm fairly skilled, or at least I thought I was, of taking pictures out of my pocket. But it's very, very dark inside, and I fumbled my camera inside Philip II's tomb, and it landed right on the zoom lens and pushed it in, and my camera was busted for the subsequent week and 2 days of my Greece trip. Oh man, that was a bummer. Luckily my phone came through and actually takes fairly decent pictures, but there's an AiH story for you. So, just as a note, the charge to get in AiH is not... oh man, it's so expensive. So expensive. I was a little bit upset at how expensive it was. But live and learn, right? And if you go there, you kind of have to go. It's a really cool place, but it's so expensive. Anyway. Okay. Back to the Dravidians. So you're going to see some city-states in the Dravidian culture. They're going to have some kings that are going to have some small territories. You're going to see palaces. You're going to see tombs that are indicative of class structure. But you're also going to start seeing a much more defined, organized religion. And the native Dravidian religion is going to be an important concept to hold on to. My thought is that next time we'll spend our Thursday discussion talking about the origins and beliefs of Hinduism. And a lot of those roots are going to go back to the Dravidian culture. The Dravidians have some deities that manage to basically get into the larger pantheon of Hinduism. And the organized religion and language of the Dravidians is going to give a lot of words to the language that people are going to use to write down the Vedas, which are these really big texts written in Sanskrit that come from a little bit later. So Dravidians, pretty neat people. There are still descendants of these people around. Asking inside of India who is a Dravidian and who isn't is a bit of a loaded question. Some of the same people that are kind of manipulating the historical past of India are also trying to develop kind of divisions of people. So sometimes you'll hear groups of people referred to as ancient northern Indians and ancient southern Indians, and the southern people get to claim Dravidian, but the northern people don't because they are different ethnically. And again, there's a lot of politics sort of wrapped into that idea. I know I keep referring to this stuff, but suffice to say that there are certain ethnic and religious groups inside of India that want everything to be related to them, and they want to denigrate other ethnic and religious groups. And I think that can sum it up nicely without having to get too far into the rabbit hole, because it can go way on down there. All right, so I forgot to show you a picture before we leave the Dravidians. So I mentioned that the Dravidians have a pretty important set of religious deities, and one of the images that I can show you is actually this guy right here. This is an artifact that is referred to as Shiva Pashupati, and I am almost certainly destroying the pronunciation of that. If anyone speaks native Indian languages, I do apologize. But Shiva is one of the deities of Hindu religion, but this particular item here is significantly older than the Hindu religion, and it shows the figure here seated with bull horns, which of course again are going to be important figures. You see them surrounded by animals, stacks of wheat. You see people up here. There's some writing, fish, and symbols that represent corn, not corn, but wheat, things like that. So this is probably from either the very, very end of the Harappan world or the sort of beginning of the Dravidian sort of dominance of India. But Shiva here is a pretty important figure, and this is, again, one of these deities that makes its way out of the Dravidian culture and into the larger Aryan culture, or the Aryan religion, rather. And I did the bad thing. Let me click on this thing. Cool. All right, so I just mentioned the Aryans, and this, of course, is going to be a super loaded term. Aryan religion, of course, is very, very misunderstood, and there have been so many takes on this in the modern world. Let me just go ahead and say, I've already been beaten to it. All right, so the ancient Aryans are not Nazis, nor are the ancient Aryans white people. They're not the same. Hitler got that way wrong. It's not even kind of close. Gasp! I know. Yeah, it's not the same. These people are different. They are ethnically different. They are linguistically different. The thing that the Nazis sort of based all of this off of is the movement of the Aryan people into India. This is going to be somewhat actually similar to our discussion on Tuesday, if you were with us in our first ever request episode. We talked about the Slavic migrations that happened around the sort of end of the Bronze Age with lots of Indo-Europeans. The Aryans are going to be part of that same larger group. Again, this region right here around the borders of the Caspian Sea and around the southern part, this region is going to be home to the Indo-Europeans. This, of course, has lots of linguistic ties to a lot of other people, and I won't go into all of that. But a group of them is going to move back through what is Iran and into India. And one of the most important geographical / areas in the world is actually right here. And a lot of people don't know too terribly much about this, but let me tell you, this little divot in the mountains right here is super important to ancient history. This is what we call the Khyber Pass. Khyber, or Khyber Pass. It is the best way to get from Iran and Central Asia down into India. And this region up here in northern India today is the modern day state in India of Punjab. And that region, of course, it's not Khyber Crystal KP, Khyber Pass. You're not going to find a lightsaber there. I don't even know why they stole that name. Maybe there's some weird Buddhist Hindu thing that they're trying to wrap into India. Who knows? Who knows what the Disney gods decide to do with Star Wars anymore? I just pretend like they don't exist. It's easier for my soul. There's some good things in the new movies. No joke. I mean, there's some good character development in the new movies. I like some of the ideas that they did in the good movies. I like some of the ideas that they did well in the new movies. I don't have a problem with them existing insofar as I can cut out all the good stuff. But man, some of the stuff just irks me. Anyway, so Khyber Pass. It is this little spot right here. You can see it. It's a chunk out of the mountains. These mountains, by the way, are the Himalaya, the highest mountain ranges in the world. Mount Everest is down in here in Nepal. This is the Iranian plateau, and this little guy right here is what connects them. And this is what's going to be used, and this is how the Aryans are going to get into India. Almost went there myself. Guarantee someone just saw the word and thought it sounded cool with no context. Hey, I mean, that is just as likely. They're just keeping George tradition there, of changing things without any reason. Did anyone see that Mount Everest was visible from Kathmandu recently? I didn't hear about that, Superb. Is it due to overheating and some of the mountain passes opening up when they're not supposed to? I don't really know. I haven't read anything about that. Fill me in. Anyway, so who are these Aryans? If they're not Nazis, which they aren't. Lack of pollution. Yeah, that'll do it. India is one of the most polluted countries in the world. Their air quality is garbage over there. It's partially because a lot of people are crammed in very tightly together. They have a lot of automobiles. They also don't have a lot of rules that keep pollution from happening. Lack of pollution, yeah. Nature will find a way, right? Anyway, so who are the Aryans? So the word area itself is from their language, and their language is an Indo-Aryan language, meaning that it comes from Indo. It has a lot to do with the Iranian plateau as well. It has Indo-European ties as well. So their word area actually is what they use to describe themselves, and they describe themselves as nobles. So the word Aryan means noble in their own language. Has anyone seen the heat maps of the world to show how much pollution has dropped? No, but I bet it's intriguing and sad at the same time. Around 2000 or so, from about 2000 to about 1500, the Aryan people are going to be leaving this Central Asian world and migrating into the northern part of India. Battling with my connection over here, but still haven't lost. Cool. Hopefully things work out for you. Oh, let's look at this. Oh man, that's dramatic. That's crazy. Wow. That's kind of all I can say about that. Crazy, crazy times. All right. So the difference between the Aryans and the Dravidians is pretty drastic. There were wars and fights between the Dravidians, but the Indo-Europeans are going to bring with them something that is a lot more involved, and that is the use of high-level war technology. The Indo-Europeans are the first people that come up with chariot use in the Middle East. They are the progenitors of wheel-based materials. They also are going to be some of the first people that use iron. Now, they haven't completely got to that point yet by the time they're moving into India, but they figure it out pretty soon afterwards. And these guys are used to fighting. They're used to being in an area that is not as fertile as India and having to compete much more for their natural resources. So when the Aryans come into India, they find all these more or less peaceful living Dravidians, and they go, these guys are kind of ripe for the taking. And the Aryans are going to slowly but surely move in and take over most of the big habitation centers of India. And they're going to bring with them quite a bit of technology. They're going to bring with them also new agricultural techniques. The Aryans are going to introduce rice growing to India. And these people are also going to bring with them a lot of sort of cultural baggage. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but they bring with them all of this ideology and the way that they view the world and the way that they speak and the way that they write. And the Aryans are going to be very, very different when it comes to the way that they're organized, right? When they take over an area, these kings are going to be really interested in beating the junk out of themselves. Is the majority of modern Indian linguistically Dravidian or Indo-European Sanskrit? There are so many languages that are actually spoken in India, I can't answer that accurately just because I don't know the math of how they break down. Video the same changes over Europe. Also, how is it possible that technological advances in warfare were realized by our barbarian nomads from the steppes and not organized urban civilization? Well, this isn't that dramatic. The Indo-European peoples, like the Mitanni, like even the Hittites, are going to move into areas and take over the cities. People that are pastoralists, that don't live in big cities, often have to fight a lot more for what they have. And that's going to make them more warlike. They don't have big agricultural centers, so they're going to have to go take food. And that's going to put a lot of onus on them to go out and take stuff. And that is what the Aryans are going to do. They're going to move into India, recognize the abundance of wealth there, and then insert themselves into the leadership positions. What they're going to bring with them linguistically is Sanskrit. And we've mentioned Sanskrit a few times. And I have a feeling that most people sort of understand what Sanskrit is. And you may have even seen it. But let me just give you one more image here to sort of cement what we're talking about when we say Sanskrit. It's this stuff. This is part of the one of the Vedas written in Sanskrit. And there are different versions of Sanskrit. There's the ancient stuff, and then there are a couple of dialects of more modern stuff that's still used. But this is one of the oldest languages that's still being actively used in the world today. It comes from that Iranian plateau Indo-European world, and it gets spread down into the Indian world, and it's going to not take too long to sort of become the language of the people. It's going to be spread by the Aryans, and the Aryans are going to sort of start enforcing this as they take over these cities. When they take over your city, they're going to make you do the stuff their way. And their world is very highly systematized. They have a lot of different ideas that they're going to bring with them. Most notably, something that is called caste. And if you know anything about India, you'll know that the caste system is a very important part of their culture. Well, this is introduced into the Indian world as the Aryans are conquering basically the majority of India. And they're going to organize people into social groups. And this is mostly going to be based on whether or not you are Aryan or whether or not you are not Aryan. Right? So, hush. The puppy is just so upset that I have her chicken. The upper two castes are going to be your warriors and your priests, and these are going to be restrained to the Aryan people. The other bottom castes are going to mostly be where your Dravidian people fall in, and this is how they're going to take over, right? If you tell people from birth you are part of a lower subservient caste, and that is your job. Oh man, you really want the puppy. Okay, let's get the puppy up. Come here, puppy. Here, I will give you your chicken. Come and see me. Come here. Oh yes, here's the puppy. Here's Kaylee, puppy. Here's your chicken. Do you want your chicken back? Do you want your chicken? Okay. Are you going to squeak it? No. Are you going to take it away and go into the other room? Oh, she's so excited that she got her puppy. Hey, Stefan Omley. She's going to go sulk with Mama. She probably is, because she's been so mad that I took that chicken away from her. Anyway. So one of the things that the Aryans are going to do using this caste system and using their scriptures that are going to be written in Sanskrit is organize the people, right? So you might ask how a smaller group of people are going to be able to dominate a larger group of people, right? So the Dravidians way outnumbered the Aryans, but the Aryans took over all of India. She's going to go sulk, and the adventure hat has been summoned again. I am already determined that this is going to have to be limited to maybe once per stream, because now I'm getting... I'm not... I did it myself, so I could put the adventure hat back on, and we'll have another one. Maybe there's a dog-related one that I could say. I know there's a cat-related one, which is kind of similar, and I know some people... Some people in the room like cats. I won't call any names, but they might rhyme with methylmomily. Was on a trip with a good friend, close friend, kind of mentor guy named Dan Browning, and we were at this big temple of Artemis in man, I think that was... Oh man, now I'm losing my stories. I was in Gadara. Okay. Gadara is a big city in ancient Jordan. And we're sitting down to have lunch. And this stray cat kind of bolts out of the distance and immediately falls into petitioning Dan to share some of his food with it. And Dan is a cat guy anyway. He has several cats of his own. Of whom he names, typically, he names his cats after ancient Bronze Age rulers. One of his cats, his name was Tiglath-Pileser. He had another one called Shupluliumus. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But before I knew it, this cat had perched itself, it climbed up Dan and was sitting on his shoulder. And he got so upset that I was making fun of him because... he clearly wanted to, love this cat, but it's a feral cat. This thing is just as liable to claw his eyeballs out as it is to love him. But, yeah, it was a fun little moment there. Outside the Temple of Artemis at Gadara. I think it was at Gadara. If it wasn't Gadara, I'll have to go back and look at my pictures. Sometimes this stuff all gets mushed together because you go to 8 temples of You can't really remember which one is which. 2 cats and a dog. A cat called Shupaluluumus after the Hittite king. Yep. That's how he named his kids. Anyway, so to put a bow on this Aryan stuff that I've been trying to get across here. So the Aryans were fewer, but they were more warlike, and they took over. And they inserted themselves into the leadership positions of the cities in the Dravidian world. And what's going to allow them to carry this power through several different generations is literally by hijacking the native Dravidian religion. So the Aryan religion that they're bringing with them is going to be melded with a lot of the Dravidian elements. But imagine being told, like I said earlier, from birth, that you are part of this lower caste, and there's nothing that you can do in this life to get out of that caste. The best thing that you can do is follow your job, do what you're supposed to do, and maybe you can get reincarnated as one of the higher castes later on. Because that's what the caste system does in this ancient world. It allows the Aryans to bring in their smaller population and dominate the much more populous Dravidian culture. That's cool as he's not called Nero. Yeah. So that is the first three cultures of ancient India: the Harappans, the Dravidians, and the Aryans. These people are really, really neat. As always, I would, of course, encourage you to go do some digging on your own. If you like this kind of stuff, take some of the words that I've shared with you today and go dig some up. There's a lot more history out there. I have sort of hit what I call the high notes and tried to make this as entertaining as possible. Hopefully, I have not bored anybody. Puppy sightings and adventure hat anecdotes have happened a lot, so maybe that has broken up the monotony of things. But I will open the floor up for questions. If there's anything that I could answer for you about this topic, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll do a little bit of my kind of closing spiel here. Don't forget that if you would like, you can click follow, and that will let you know when I am online. You can click the little bell button beside that. That is going to be letting you know when I go live. To be honest, he's named for the Captain Kirk, not the Emperor. Fair enough. Tiberius was an okay guy until he went crazy at the end. He wasn't really ever supposed to be emperor anyway, but that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about Rome later. If you think I'm excited about the Harappans, wait till we get to Rome. So these are Bronze Age civilizations. Yes. The Harappans were Stone Age and transitioned to the Bronze Age. The Dravidians were Bronze Age. The Aryans are a Bronze Age that transitioned into Iron Age. We didn't talk about the Federal Empire of Mycenae. Rome is my bread and butter. Yes. Where they were practicing metallurgy. Yes. Both for art and for weaponry, practicing metallurgy. No, no, not tonight. I did joke, though, Gallinuva, and you might be able to confer with your SO. I gave myself a haircut on Tuesday before the stream. And even though it wasn't my first haircut, I said I should save this and sacrifice it to Rod. There's a tradition inside Slavic culture of giving the clippings of your child's first haircut to Rod. But anyway, there's that. So there's a little extra nugget left over for you. Okay, so again, if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, I'm at Some History Guy. Art Conte redeemed random history fact. Oh man, do you have a request, or you just want me to give you a really actual random one? I'd be happy to take a request about a specific thing. And welcome back, Art Conte. Something fun and random. Okay, we got mention of the Emperor Tiberius. So there's a guy named Suetonius who wrote a history of the first emperors of Rome, and he really didn't care for Tiberius that much. He wrote well after Tiberius had died, but Suetonius, thought that Tiberius was a bad emperor. So he wrote all of this potentially slanderous stuff about him, and Suetonius recorded that at the end of his life, Tiberius, who had gone kind of crazy, retreated to the Isle of Capri, where he would fill his bath. These big Roman baths, of course, were very, very large, bigger than the room that I'm in right now. And he would bring small children into the bath with him and have them swim around and nibble at his nether parts as if they were fish. So there's something fun and totally random for you that somehow loops back around to our conversation. He did really hate Tiberius. Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, so there you go. There's a fun and random history fact for you. If you are not already, please do click the follow button. Follows do help me out. They let you know when I'm around. Of course, they also get you some channel points so that you can do some of the cool channel stuff that's been going on. Also, if you have Twitch Prime, once again, if you have Amazon Prime, you can link that Amazon Prime account to Twitch and get a free subscription that you can give to whichever streamer that you want. If you wanted to give it to me, I would be super honored and appreciative. You want one about poo. Okay. In archaeological terms, an ancient fossilized poop is called a coprolite. So if you see anything that mentions ancient excavation and the location of coprolites, that is fossilized poo. I can't spell. Copro. Coprolite. There you go. There is a random historical fact about poo. There you go. There's actually an entire world of study of coprolites where people try to break them down and grind them up to see if there's fossilized pollen inside of them to figure out what sort of plants people were eating. Gotta love archaeology, man. My spelling isn't showing up on screen. Oh, I typed it into the chat. Aw. All right. Okay, everybody. Let me see who is around. Let me see if we can raid somebody. All right. I have 2 people that I am following that are currently online that we could raid. One is a gentleman named Jay Hansen who does some art. He is a fan of 90s rock and alternative stuff, and I don't know exactly what he's doing right now. I might be able to check. Let me see. Well, the other one is also an artist. Friend of the channel, perhaps in the future. A guy that I just met not too long ago. Pretty cool guy named Lee. He is drawing a Dragonborn from the D&D world. Looks like Jay Hansen is looking at some reference photos right now. So let me know who you think, Jay Hansen or Lee. I don't know exactly what Jay Hansen is drawing. Let me see if I can figure it out. Art of Lee. Oh, so you already know who Lee is. Okay. All right. So let us raid Art of Lee. If you have them, prepare the adventure hats and let us just yell adventure. If you have channel points that you would like to spend, if you are not currently subscribed, you can actually temporarily unlock the adventure hat emote. So if you want to go ahead and do that, please do so, and we will head towards the Art of Lee in just a moment. Bonus lecture next Tuesday is going to be on the Maya culture. This was chosen as the second request. So we will be talking about the Maya on Tuesday next week. Tuesday, probably 6 p.m. Central. So if you all are ready, thank you very much again. I'm going to roll the outro for just a second, and then we will... last question if possible. What strategic games do you find most accurate? Age of Empires is really good for a lot of that stuff. Civ games are actually pretty accurate. I like the way that they include stuff like linguistics and things like that as technology that you unlock. And Civ 6 is free on Epic this week if you have it. Good point. All right, everybody. Total War games are good too. So let's raid. We're going to yell adventure and throw a whole bunch of adventure hats in on Lee. All right. So see all you all next week.